chairs scraped against the marble floor as guests turned toward the voice that had cut through the music. I froze at the altar, clutching the bouquet so tightly the stems dug into my palm. A woman stood in the center aisle. Her hair was pulled back in a plain knot, her dress too simple for an occasion like this. Her face was pale but firm. "I'm your real sister," she said, each word sharp and deliberate. For a second, silence hung in the hall. Then gasps rose around me, waves of disbelief rippling through the rows of guests. My fiancé shifted beside me, his hand hovering near mine, whispering my name, "Alexa," as though the sound of it would steady me. It didn't. My gaze snapped to the front row, to my mother. She didn't shout. She didn't laugh it off. She didn't even glance at me. Instead, she stood abruptly, her chair scraping the polished floor, and walked quickly toward the exit. Her heels clicked faster than I'd ever heard them, until the heavy double doors swallowed her up. "Mom." My voice cracked, the word carrying louder than I intended. She didn't turn back. The hall erupted in whispers. Guests leaned toward each other, some frowning, others craning their necks to watch her leave. My stepfather remained seated, his hand pressed flat on his knee, his expression locked in stone. Not anger. Not shock. Just a stillness that unsettled me more than anything. The woman claiming to be my sister didn't move. Her eyes were locked on me, steady and unflinching, as if she'd been waiting her whole life for this confrontation. I tried to steady my breath, but each inhale felt too shallow. This was supposed to be my wedding. A perfect day, planned down to the flowers on the tables and the music for the first dance. Yet here I was, standing frozen, bouquet trembling in my hands, while strangers and family alike stared at me, waiting for me to respond. "Who are you?" I finally managed, my voice thin. She didn't answer immediately. She tilted her head slightly, her eyes flicking toward the doors where my mother had disappeared. "Ask her," she said flatly. I looked again at my stepfather. His jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. Not a word of denial, not a single attempt to stop this spectacle. My chest tightened with something worse than fear, confusion. If this woman was lying, why didn't he correct her? Why didn't anyone? I glanced toward the bridesmaids, frozen in their pale dresses, holding their bouquets like shields. One mouthed "Oh my God" to another. My fiancé tried to speak again, but I raised my hand slightly, signaling him to stop. I didn't want comfort. I wanted answers. And yet, all I had was the image of my mother, walking out, not looking back, her movements frantic in a way I'd never seen before. Maybe she ran because she was humiliated. Maybe she ran because she was guilty. Or maybe she ran because the stranger was telling the truth. The hall still buzzed with whispers, but in my head there was only one question, pounding louder than any voice around me. Why did my mother run? I didn't wait for the reception to recover. As the whispers grew louder, I pushed the bouquet into my maid of honor's hands and hurried down the aisle. The doors were still swinging when I burst into the hallway. The corridor outside was quieter, but my mother wasn't there. Her purse sat abandoned on a bench against the wall. I grabbed it, my pulse racing. She never left her purse behind, not at home, not even for a quick walk. "Mom." My voice echoed against the tall windows. "Nothing." I turned sharply as the stranger followed me out. She stood a few feet away, her arms crossed. "You saw it," she said. "She ran because she knows." "Knows what?" My throat tightened. "That you're lying." Her expression didn't waver. "That I'm telling the truth. And that you were never supposed to find out." I wanted to argue, but my chest was already burning with doubt. My mother hadn't denied it. She hadn't said a word. She just disappeared. A hand touched my arm, my stepfather. His grip was firm, too firm. "Alexa," he said calmly, almost too calmly. "This is not the time for theatrics. Go back inside. We'll talk later." I yanked my arm free. "Where is she?" "She didn't just leave." His eyes narrowed slightly, and for the first time, I saw something slip through the mask of control, irritation. Maybe fear. "She left because she was embarrassed." That's all you need to know. But I wasn't convinced. I searched his face, waiting for some sign of truth. There was none. Behind him, the woman claiming to be my sister stepped closer. Do you really believe that? She left her purse. She didn't leave on her own. Her words sent a chill down my spine. I looked again at the purse in my hands. Inside was her wallet, her phone, even her reading glasses. She had nothing with her. If she ran blind. I dialed her number, but the phone buzzed right there in the bag. I held it up to my stepfather. Embarrassed people don't leave without their phone. His jaw tightened again. He didn't answer. Guests were starting to trickle into the hallway, murmuring nervously, waiting for an explanation. I felt heat rise to my face as my fiancé appeared at the doorway, worry written across him. I shook my head. She didn't just leave. My supposed sister stepped closer, lowering her voice so only I could hear. She didn't run, Alexa. She was taken. The words landed heavy, and for a moment I forgot to breathe. Taken? The idea was too much, too extreme. But then I thought of her purse, her silence, the way she hadn't even glanced back at me. If she had been forced out, it would have looked the same. Quick, silent, determined. I pressed a hand against my chest, trying to slow my heartbeat. By who? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted the answer. The woman hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward my stepfather, just for a second. That's what we need to find out. I stared at him, but his face was unreadable again. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that he knew more than he was saying. Inside, the music had stopped completely. My wedding was over before it began. All that mattered now was the gnawing truth that wouldn't leave me alone. If my mother didn't leave on her own, who took her? The hall had emptied into restless fragments, guests whispering, the bridal party waiting for instructions, my fiancé's parents murmuring about whether the ceremony would resume. None of it mattered. My focus was on the purse clutched in my hands and the stranger, my supposed sister, who now refused to leave my side. We stepped into a smaller lounge just off the corridor. I dumped the contents of my mother's purse onto the table. Lipstick, tissues, her phone, a folded grocery list, a small key I didn't recognize, and a torn piece of paper. The woman leaned forward. Read it. The paper was jagged at the edges, like it had been ripped from a larger page. The handwriting was my mother's. Only half a sentence remained. Oh, can't let him find out. If Alexa. My throat tightened. Find out what? If I what? The stranger, she told me her name was Elise, stared at the words with clenched fists. Who do you think him is? I didn't want to answer, but my eyes drifted toward the closed door, to where my stepfather was keeping watch in the hall like a guard. I shoved the paper back into my pocket before anyone else saw it. Elise touched the key. Do you know what this is for? I shook my head. It wasn't for our house, and it wasn't the car key. Something else. Something hidden. I pressed the power button on my mother's phone. No password was needed. She trusted me with the code years ago. The last message was from an unsaved number, received less than an hour before the wedding. If you don't leave quietly today, I will make sure everyone learns what you've hidden. I showed it to Elise. She didn't run. She was forced. Elise exhaled slowly, as if confirming what she already knew. And I think I know who sent it. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Your stepfather. My mother married him after yours. He's the same man. Her words sent a surge of nausea through me. I pushed back from the table, pacing. That's impossible. But even as I said it, pieces began to align. His cold silence, his refusal to deny her claim, my mother's panic. Why would he? I started, then stopped. Because I already knew. The note. The threat. Whatever my mother had hidden all these years, he didn't want it to come out. Elise stepped toward me. If we want to find her, we have to start where he won't expect us to look. Somewhere she kept private. I thought of the attic. A place my mother rarely let anyone into. Always locked, always dusty. I'd never questioned why. The key. We drove back to the house together, leaving my fiancé to manage the chaos. When I opened the attic door, the air smelled of dust and cedar. Boxes stacked high, old suitcases, a trunk that looked heavy enough to hold secrets. Inside the trunk were photo albums, some I'd never seen. One showed my mother with a child who wasn't me, younger by only a year or two. Elise. She hadn't lied. At the bottom was another note, folded neatly. The paper trembled in my hands as I opened it. If he discovers this, everything will fall apart. Protect the girls. Don't let him know they found each other. I looked at Elise, the weight of it pressing on both of us. This isn't just about her, she said quietly. It's about us. My heart pounded as the truth settled in. My mother had hidden us from him. From the man who was supposed to protect us. And now he had her. The bigger question lodged itself in my chest, heavy and cold. If my stepfather is willing to take her to keep the secret buried, what will he do to us once we start digging? The attic note left no room for doubt. My mother had been hiding the truth for years, and my stepfather knew it. If he had her, she was in real danger. Elise and I didn't waste time. We searched the trunk again, this time for anything practical. At the bottom was another scrap of paper, almost overlooked, an address scribbled quickly, as though she hadn't wanted anyone to notice. It was on the edge of town, an old storage facility my mother used when we were children. I remembered going there once, years ago, carrying boxes too heavy for me to understand. She'd never let me go back. We drove in silence, headlights cutting through the night. My heart thudded louder with every mile. When we arrived, the place looked abandoned. Rows of metal doors stretched into the darkness. Only one had a faint light flickering underneath. We moved slowly, every step deliberate. Elise gripped the key from the purse, her knuckles white. I held my breath and turned the lock. Inside, the room was cold, the air thick with dust. My mother sat tied to a chair in the middle, her head drooping. "Mom." My voice cracked as we rushed to her. She stirred weakly, lifting her eyes. Relief broke across her face, followed by fear. "You shouldn't have come." "We had to," I said, fumbling with the knots until they came loose. Elise steadied her, helping her stand. Her voice trembled. "He knows you found each other. That's why he took me. To stop you before you could learn more." I swallowed hard, looking around the room. "Where is he?" My mother shook her head. "Gone. He wanted me to tell you nothing. But he left something for you." She gestured toward the table in the corner. A folded note sat on top, perfectly placed, waiting. I picked it up, the paper stiff between my fingers. Elise leaned over my shoulder as I unfolded it. The words were short, written in his precise handwriting. "This is not over. If even one person learns the truth, you will all die." A chill spread through me. Elise clenched her fists, her jaw set. My mother turned away, silent tears streaking her cheeks. I read the note again, each word heavier than the last. He hadn't just taken her, he'd left a promise. A threat that bound us all together in fear. We led my mother out into the night air, her steps shaky but determined. The three of us stood by the car, the cool wind cutting across our faces. Elise broke the silence first. "He's warning us. Whatever he's hiding, it must be bigger than we thought." I stared down at the note still in my hand, the words burning into me. "This is not over." I thought of my wedding dress, abandoned back in the hall. Of the guests who had no idea what was unfolding outside their polite conversations. Of the man I had trusted as my father, who had stolen my mother and nearly destroyed the day that was meant to begin my future. Now that future was split in two, before the truth, and after. As I looked at my mother and Elise, two women bound to me by blood and by the same danger, I felt a weight pressing deeper than fear. If one secret could threaten to destroy us all, I needed to know why. My voice was quiet, almost to myself. What kind of truth is so dangerous it's worth killing for? Neither of them answered. The night swallowed our silence. And I knew, this wasn't the end.